Welcome, everyone. My name is Medina Sani, and I am the Assistant Director for Programming with the Hopkins program, which is in the Center for Student Success. And I'm glad to be your host for our very first and inaugural 20-minute investment podcast brought to you by the Life Design Lab and the Center for Student Success. The 20-minute investment podcast is the brainchild of Hannah Jackson, Elena Hayes, and myself, with an effort to try to get our students, some Blue Jays, to take just a short amount of time to do some investment in themselves, not necessarily financially, but in the way of learning more about how they can maximize their experience at the university. We have a guest today, our very first guest, Cameron Little, who is a 2018 alumni from our university. Let's give him a round of applause. Yay. Cameron graduated Hopkins in December 2018 as an economics major. He was a star football player. I might be juicing that a little bit, but make him nervous. He was a football player, and he helped start our Fly initiative. He also worked with Farouk Day in the construction of the Life Design Lab, and also did some work with the Career Center at that point in time. And as I said before, he was also an econ major. So, Cameron, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive right in.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Really excited to have this conversation. I'm originally from Ohio. Took a lot of courage to go to Hopkins in 2015. I had never really left home, but I'm glad I did, and had a great experience in undergrad, and have felt pretty involved since I left with different stuff. So I graduated a semester early in December 2018, came back for graduation, and then left for New York City for work. I've been working as a investment banking analyst with Greenhill & Company. Since coronavirus hit, I came back home to Ohio, so I'm currently chilling in my hometown and childhood home, which has been interesting versus living in Manhattan. But planning on going back there after Labor Day. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. So as you mentioned, right now we are in the throes of the coronavirus, and it has pretty much put a stop or a stick, if you will, in a lot of everyone's plans and things that they were intending to do, especially for students who had internships and research opportunities during the summer. So what are some ways, or let's say untapped or underutilized practices that students can engage in so that they can make the most of their summer?
So I think that's a really good question, and just gets at, like, how can you be proactive and get involved in good stuff? I think networking's really good if you're able to be doing a virtual internship or research opportunity. I think a lot of that starts with just making the most of that. To me, that's just being thoughtful and asking really good questions. I think another important thing, especially if you're in a bigger firm or team, is just finding ways to align yourself with the standouts of the company, or people that you feel could mentor you or teach you. I think a lot of your experience is going to be based on the projects you're on, and the people you're working with. So if you can think a little bit outside the box on how to get tapped on the right projects or to work with the right people, do your best to do that. And then I think the other thing, just given this current environment, is focusing on what you yourself can control. Like, everybody's in a pretty funky spot right now. But I think with some creativity and a good attitude and just a curious approach to things, that if you just keep asking questions, like, keep staying involved and keep wanting to learn more in whatever your field is, then you're gonna benefit a lot.
That's awesome. There were a couple of things that you mentioned that sort of brought a few things into mind for me. One of those things is reaching out and networking and seeing who you can connect with and how you can leverage that relationship to learn a little bit more. And what specifically comes to mind are alumni, of course, right? Like, these are folks who you have a built-in connection with because you're at the same university, so you can kind of relate to some of those things, the places that you've been on campus, the experiences, things like that. And so can you talk a little bit about what value you believe alumni bring to students in terms of sharpening your skills and preparing you for your future?
Definitely. So when I was an undergrad, I leaned very heavily on upperclassmen students, and then also alumni from Hopkins, whether that, and I think one important clarification is that alumni from all of the different Hopkins branches are willing to help. I know sometimes it can be a little uncomfortable if you're a Hopkins undergrad person to reach out from someone at SICE or the Carey School of Business or the medical school. But one thing that I think is being stressed in a positive way is that Hopkins is one big community despite being a bunch of different schools. So really, like, leveraging any of those connections is important. Something I feel is underutilized is that alumni are good sources because they've been in your shoes before, and as a younger person, and like, I'm still in this camp, I'm just 23, there's a lot of things that you don't know that you don't know. And so since alumni are older and more experienced and just have had more repetitions through things and have had to make different decisions that you've maybe not been presented with yet, I think alumni just help you navigate different hiccups or maybe even identify opportunities that you just didn't know were there because of a lack of experience. So I think really leaning into them to just see, to talk through broader things of, where could I be misstepping? What are potential pitfalls, and how do I think through these different potential outcomes from the decisions like you're having to make? So I think leaning on them and their experience can be really helpful.
I love that you talk about sort of the softer interpersonal things that alumni can help you with. One of the, not necessarily a mistake, but the idea that most students have is that alumni help you get a job. I'm going to speak to this person who graduated 17 years ago. They're going to be the VP of sales at this big firm, and they're going to give me the job. And that's, that could be true, but, there's also recent grads who are sort of, making their way, who can tell you, hey, when you go on an interview, make sure you look the person in the eye, make sure you follow up once you finish that interview, or even get an interview, actually do an informational interview. Those soft skills are not necessarily things that you'll learn or pick up, from like reading online necessarily. And they're it's kind of like this 20-minute, conversations that don't take a lot out of you or maybe the alumni, the person that you're interacting with. So I really like to drill down on that point that speaking to alumni isn't necessarily a big conversation about getting a job or getting an opportunity, but it can just be about bringing attention to soft and hard skills or technical skills or sharpen while you're preparing for that top platform, which is, I don't know if it's necessarily new, but we've started to really, work on it and utilize it. What are some other ways that students can get involved and start conversations with alumni?
Yeah, so I think starting conversations with alumni is a bit of a two-prong approach. Just that in some sense you need to have a broad approach by sending cold emails, LinkedIn requests, using Go Hop Online, and sort of talking to anybody who's willing to give you your time, who maybe had a similar experience. And then like the other prong is having a more targeted approach. So let's say your goal is to go be a product manager at Google. or be a specific type of surgeon. That initial broader search is really helpful just to make connections in maybe adjacent industries or in a certain firm or at a specific school, and just to make another connection and form another positive relationship in life. But then that really helps once you start narrowing down your focus and really targeting your approach. So let's say if you are wanting to be that product manager at Google, maybe you talk to someone who's a product manager at Amazon, and then you get to see what it's like to be a product manager, but maybe they know someone at Google, or maybe you talk to someone in Google or at Google who's in corporate development, but they have friends in the firm who can refer you. And so I think really blending those two approaches really help you once you've narrowed down your focus and it's sort of whittled down what you're going after. And then especially once you're wanting those more targeted connections where someone can sort of help you get into the program you wanted to be in, or like really tell you what it's like to be a product manager at Google or a partner at a law firm or whatever you're striving for. Doing that broader search helps you get more informed and get smarter on your targeted approach. And then those folks can also help give you a warm introduction to someone they may know who's in your more targeted, focused approach, which is really important and helpful if someone's referring you and it's not just that cold reaching out.
Yes. So you hit the nail on the head about essentially doing your homework before you speak to alumni or before you reach out to anyone. That makes it a lot easier, right? Google is your friend. It's your best friend. Google literally knows everything. And so, that would actually make it a lot easier, right? Doing your homework on whatever the industry is or the position, and looking at a couple of different places so that you can sharpen your understanding of perhaps what you're looking for, what you're looking into. And then if you find an alumni or someone to speak with, then you can actually reference, hey, I saw this position, I saw this description, or I read this article. What do you think about it? It makes that conversation a lot more fruitful, and it actually saves a lot of time. You don't want to call an alumni or speak to anyone and say, so can you tell me what an analyst is? That's
right.
Time that they could be giving you some really strong and impactful insider information, but instead they're starting from the beginning, explaining things that you could have learned on your own. The other thing about warm introductions is that, people are human, right? And so it's great when someone, reaches out and asks for help, but it's a different feeling when you can tell that person did their homework, as the alumni receiving, and you feel even more empowered to support that person because you can see how ambitious they are, the initiative they're taking. You want to help someone who's already helping themselves. So I think, in starting or sparking that fruitful conversation, it does start with doing your homework first. And doing your own research, and then using that, leveraging that knowledge that you already have to then link that conversation to say, hey, I, learned a little bit about this, and I see that you work in this industry. Can I ask you a few questions? Yep. Then, lo and behold, that person is 17 years alumni. They're the VP of the position, and now they want to give you a job, hopefully. And I want to actually segue into that for a moment in terms of, how do you turn an informational conversation into an actual opportunity? If you have any insight on that, Cameron, let us know.
Yeah, I think what you said on doing your homework is paramount. I had my high school chemistry teacher would always sit, like he had a sign on his desk that said proper preparation prevents poor performance. And I think just doing your diligence, and I guess another prerequisite to that is just being genuinely interested, and showing that you've been thoughtful about why you're interested in what you're interested in, like why you have these curiosities, maybe where in your past experience, whether that be when you were a little kid, you liked the science fair was your favorite thing, and you've continued that through college, and you sort of flagged that, and really getting sort of philosophical about what are you good at and what are you really interested in and what have you done to date, and just trying to tie all that together for someone's really helpful. And I think often when we think of missteps, we think of errors of commission, like, oh, I said this stupid thing, or I talked over the person, or I stuttered, or what have you. A lot of times it's also errors of omission where, man, I could have checked this person's LinkedIn, seen what they were involved in, see what they were interested in. I could have made sure I checked the news that morning, or like read the different periodical that might be applicable. So I think asking, you know, where are my errors of omission, and will be helpful to like alleviate any fears of errors of commission. So I think that's really important. And then just reps, you know, it can be a little uncomfortable talking to strangers on the phone if you're not like used to sales or something like that. So just knowing that like you may misstep, but you know, the more reps that you have, the better you'll get and the more comfortable it'll feel. And over time, you'll keep seeing rewards too. So you'll become more confident in seeing the benefit and progress, just like with any sort of small habit or institution in your life.
Right. We want to fail forward and we want to do it fast, which is kind of part of the life design process, right? It's iterative, if I'm saying that word properly. I think I am. You know, you want to try it, fail, get up, try it again, so that you get comfortable, you become confident, and you can continue doing it so that you can increase your likelihood for success early, not when you're like, you know, 45 and you're like, okay, I'm going out for my first job. I hope this ends well. You know, it's like, okay, good luck, Dad. But
definitely,
you want to try, fail, and continue trying, but doing it in a way that's strategic, right? Like reading and looking up information ahead of time. You know, one of the things that, you know, I kind of referenced it a little bit, is that we think about alumni as vehicles for jobs and opportunity. And one of the things I kind of want to mention or bring up is that remove the idea as solely an alumni being someone to get something from, or to, you know, to receive a tangible thing from. When you do that, you position yourself as someone who doesn't have value to share. And that relationship can kind of feel a little imbalanced. And so think of it as someone that you're learning with, learning together, collaborating with. That also brings down the pressure of like, oh, who's this big alumni? I'm afraid, but rather here's someone that I want to, you know, interact with and sort of wrestle in terms of knowledge, you know, share and collaborate with. And I think that sort of makes it easier to build an actual and sustainable relationship with them. So I'm pretty confident that we're almost at our 20 minutes. So I want to take the last couple of minutes, or actually give you the last couple of minutes, Cameron, to share some words of wisdom. You know, I know you were an athlete, so sometimes where a coach kind of was like, look, we're in the last part of the game. You know, let's go out there and go. So what are some words of wisdom that you can share with students, you know, as they're trying to figure out how to make the most of their summer during COVID, and how to maximize their relationships with alumni?
Sure. So, man, there's a lot of different things we could cover in that. I think the most important things are leaving time for reflection, and just being self-honest and giving yourself room to ask yourself, what am I doing well? What am I not doing well? Why am I enjoying this certain thing? So really cutting out time, whether that be some sort of like writing practice or meditation or what have you, to just keep yourself up to speed and conscious about what's going on and what you're enjoying and how you're performing, and sort of using that to inform that iterative process that you were talking about earlier. So much is just being flexible and continuing to learn as you go. But a really big piece of that is giving yourself sort of systematic check-ins with yourself of how am I doing? What am I liking? So I think making space for that is really important. And then also just controlling the things that you can. I think attitude and effort can get people really far, and even just showing up to like I've been hearing that a lot recently. You know, half of everything is just showing up or putting something forward, and then it's like, if you're going to do that, then do it to the best of your abilities and enjoy it. So I know that's very simple, and you know, sometimes life's not easy, or like we don't get the outcomes we want, we get beaten up a little bit. But I think always knowing that you're in control of how you feel and like what sort of energy you bring to a team or a situation, and that you yourself can be the model worker or employee or community member that you can be. And so I think just being conscious of that and asking where you can make a situation better and contribute, and that'll go a long way. And I think in the long run that's appreciated, even though in individual instances, sometimes it feels like that might not come to you, but success and positive outcomes are not linear. And so just riding the waves, riding the bumps, and knowing that if you're working hard, being kind, and being curious, that things are going to turn out well.
That's awesome. I love that. So there you have it, folks. Reflection, tracking, controlling what you can from where you are, and showing up. You know, those are the takeaways from our 20-minute investment. So we thank you so much, Cameron, for joining us on our inaugural episode. Hopefully it continues. Look for us on the Life Design Lab, as well as the Student Success socials. And we'll see all of you on OneHop or on all of our social media and technological platforms. Thank you.